Hi guys, I'm Kristen. Welcome and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to share with you 4 books that I think way more people should be talking about. Now, this isn't to say that no one is talking about these books, but I feel like they're not getting the amount of love and mentions that I think they deserve. And in one case, I feel like this is affecting the potential sequel, and I need that sequel. So let's jump into the 4 books that I think not enough people are talking about. I'll start with one that I in fact talk about quite a bit on this channel, and in fact quite recently, and I use every opportunity that I can to bring up this book. It's one that turned into a trilogy, but I remember when the sequel announced being like, I don't really feel like it needed a sequel. Like, it was good on its own. I don't want her to ruin this. And no, she made it better. And that is the Little Thieves series by Margaret Owen. You guys know that I love this book. I talked about it in my underrated YA or YA that is worth checking out. I'm sure I've mentioned it in other videos recently as well. Like, I recommend this book all the time. And I'm surprised at how infrequently I hear people talking about it, specifically on BookTube. So please spread the word. Little Thieves is amazing. Our first book is, I'm sure you're getting sick of this setup, so I'm going to keep it really brief. I'm just going to highlight the things that I think this series really brings with a brief synopsis. So this is a Goose Girl retelling. The retelling part, honestly doesn't matter if you're sick of retellings, whatever. It's just a framework for which this beautiful story, amazing character work, unravels. So it's a Goose Girl retelling, but it's told from the perspective of the maid that steals the identity of a princess. And then our main character, Vanya, who is this maid who has stolen the princess's identity, uses her newfound, access granted to her by being this princess to moonlight as a jewel thief, because she has accrued a large, significant debt to her god parents, the gods that took her in and raised her, death and fortune. Over the course of this book, we really get to see Vanya grow. When we start out, Vanya is very selfish. She is out for herself. She's always taking care of number one. She resists any kind of emotional attachment and connections, and there are reasons for all of these things. And she's a really great con artist. I think if you like con artist main characters, you should definitely give this book a read, because she's always thinking how to fix a con, how to do the next thing, how to get out of this scenario. She's really quick on her feet, really quick to lie, really good at it. And over the course of the book, we explore why she is the way that she is. What are the in these small little vignettes, not huge flashbacks, but more little interlude vignettes, we get to see why she has become this way. We get an amazing character of the investigator who is set to solve the case of all of the jewel thieving that is going on, and a really interesting dynamic between the two of them as he starts to catch on to what the situation is, and it's a little bit of a cat and mouse chase with complications involved. But what I think that this book does particularly well, it is a non-angsty YA where there is a relationship related. There is a should we kiss to get out of this scene, but handled in a way that I thought was really refreshing. There is asexual representation in this book, so great for Pride Month if you're looking for some LGBTQIA plus recommendations. We have an asexual main character and a potential asexual love interest as well, particularly here we're dealing with demisexuality. It's also a really lovely journey of personal growth where it is not completely exponential. It's not all the way up. There are lots of dips and drops and plateaus in character growth here. So we get to see Vanya both grow as well as be a little bit stuck in her ways and struggling with growth in a very realistic way. And that continues over the course of the series. So this is going to be a trilogy. I believe we have one book coming out later this year, I think, and we are getting wonderful snippets of short stories in the time period that is happening in between the second book and the third book. Definitely check out this series if you haven't already. The second book, Painted Devils, is also really amazing. Vanya accidentally starts a cult, because of course she does. Check out Little Thieves. I will not mention it for the next 2 recommendation videos, okay? But only if you read it. Another book that I think is drastically under talked about, under reviewed. I never check out Goodreads numbers and reviews and readings, so maybe I'll find that out and pop it up in the corner here for you. But this is the one where there's no word of the sequel, and it needs the sequel. I need to find out what happens next. So I need you guys to pick this book up, read it, and tell everyone else about it. And that is The Counselor by E.J. Beaton. This came out a couple years ago. I read it as a new release. It was mentioned on a lot of anticipated release videos and lists from that year, but then surprisingly very few people talked about it after the fact. Usually that turns me off. I had already read it when, like, I read it relatively soon after it came out, so that didn't really affect my picking it up, but I can see that it would potentially affect other people from picking it up, because that's what I do. If I hear like no one talking about a book that everyone talked about before it came out, I maybe hesitate a minute. But I don't really understand it in this case. I think it is in a very, very good book. And the setup here is we are, the queen dies, and our main character is, I think she's like I forget her title before becoming the counselor. She's like a scholar or a scribe or something. She's a learned person. She has a privileged role within the queen's household. She's also sort of like the queen's best friend, mentee kind of a thing. And when the queen dies, she leaves, it happens right at the beginning. It's in the synopsis, it's not a spoiler. So when the queen dies, the queen leaves instructions that our main character, Lysand, I believe, is meant to become the counselor. And in this world, there's not like a direct inheritance. The counselor has to determine, or has to choose, select the next a ruler for their country out of potential city-state rulers available. And then secretly, she also has to figure out who killed the queen because she suspects foul play. I should have done a review at the time, I didn't. So what I'm going to do is link down the brothers Gwyn have a review for The Counselor. I will link their video down below. But here is what this book has going for it. If you like really beautiful writing and really great political intrigue, this is definitely worth a pickup. It is a slower read, and our main character is very intellectual in her decision making, but I think that that's actually a benefit, where like she's meant to be someone who is educated and in a very smart intellectual person. And so aside from something that happens at the ending, generally all of the decision making that she does comes from this learned place of working through the problem, setting things up in such a way as to like get real answers. And I found that that was really great. We also have a bisexual main character. So another great LGBTQIA+ recommendation. That's not what this video was intended, but here we are. And then because we are getting both the present timeline as well as like some small flashbacks, we're able to see our main character in a relationship with both a man and a woman with these two timelines. Again, like it's not a lot of flashbacks if that turns you off. It's just like memories, kind of like she remembers things occasionally in relation to this one character. And then we also are dealing with addiction in this book. And personally, I have no personal experience with this, so a small asterisk in that I don't really know what I'm talking about. But I thought the addiction exploration here was really, really interesting. I think that it was well done. If you know of Own Voices reviews for this, let me know down below. But I thought it was really well done, the way that we explore addiction and the way that it is talked about and reasoned around in our main character's head, and as it relates to her mental health and like dealing with the stresses of her life and the things that she's going with. But I think the character study and the addiction element and the mental health and like dealing with stress is so relatable in this book that it doesn't really matter the murder mystery part. I think in my perspective, that's not like particularly the strength, it's the other things. Super great political intrigue. Really, really, I think you should check this book out. I am like desperate for the sequel, so please help me get this book a sequel. And let's move on to the next book. Another one that I do hear mentioned occasionally, but not a ton, and that is Empire of Exiles. And I don't think it is a perfect book. I did a vlog style review, like a non-spoiler vlog style review, that I will link in the cards as well as down below, that you can check out if you want to hear more detailed thoughts. I am very honest about the things that I think could have been improved, but I think that this book has a lot going for it, and I think that it has a lot of potential from a world and a politics, and I think as a magic perspective as well, if you are more into magic systems. In this world, there was a potential coup that took place 10, 15, 20, something like that years ago. And then flash forward to present day, we have an artifact or some artifacts that were important to that potential coup that obviously got squashed, that are being requested from the, I'm forgetting that word. archives. And one of our main characters, one of our POV characters, is like a scribe, lawyer type, solicitor type person within this world, and it's his job to like pick up these artifacts on behalf of the nobles that are requesting access to them. But there's like it's like a little bit suspicious, like why are these being requested? The paperwork's not been filled out by the right person. There's like definitely questions right from the very beginning, and then murders start happening within the city that relate to our main character and that have a potential connection to this previous coup from years ago. There are some flashbacks in I think a really well handled way. I think flashbacks can go either way for some people, but this one did a really good job of using this like interview setting between the person who was behind the coup and their brother who was loyal to the crown, talking about what happened. And the way that as information comes out in that conversation and as it's spaced over the course of the book was really, really good. I thought it had like some great surprises, some great reveals, and really great leading or connecting into what was going on in the moment of the book. Like they were well placed interludes. So we do have, in terms of like what this book has going for it, we do have like a conspiracy, we've got a murder mystery, we've got hidden identities, the idea of like justice, and actually that was a really interesting element where our main character is having to go through some grief. So there's a really great grief representation, actually, I thought, and that the main character does not handle it perfectly. And also it lingers with him as the plot and timeline moves forward. He doesn't just have this death experienced in his life and he suddenly moves on and gets swept into the plot. His decision-making and his actions are informed by the grief that he's dealing with, which I thought was very good. He's also grappling with the idea of justice and how he sees his place within the world and the reality of justice, if that makes sense. I thought overall the book was new and unique. There are some diverse species here that are all living within a small city with a variety of cultures. That part I don't think was described the best, but I think there is a lot of potential there for some interesting conversations around culture and identity and diversity as well. The magic system here was an affinity-based magic system. If you like archives, that was really cool. And the way that our characters with magic work in the archives, I think was really unique. I'm not going to get into the details here now, but I thought it was really, really cool. And it had a lot of like really interesting potential as it kind of like, they can like spin out of control. And we get some perspective from that. And I think it had really great intrigue. I think it had great mental health representation, as I mentioned, with the grief. So I think that this book had so much going for it that more people should be picking it up. Again, it's not perfect. You are gonna like be a little bit, not lost, but maybe you won't be able to picture all of the species at play here in terms of the descriptions that are provided, but hopefully that grows. There is already a sequel out, Relics and Ruin, or Relics of Ruin. I haven't been able to get a hold of it or to read it yet, but simply because my library hasn't gotten a copy yet. This book, I think, deserves a lot more love, a lot more people talking about it for the sheer uniqueness and fun quality and all of the other things that I mentioned. I think you should check out Empire of Exiles. And then the final book that I want to share and talk about today that I think should be getting more people reading it, I think more people should be talking about, and that is Bitter Medicine. Now, you would think that in a time that is so enthralled with romantasy, you would think that this book would be getting a little bit more action. However, I think that the issue here is that it's not super like sexy and explicit, and it's not like sensational in any way. So if that is like your brand of romantasy, and that's fine, it totally time and a place for sure, but I think that it's not getting enough love, this book, because it's not those things. It's not like that style of romantasy. But if what you're looking for is more of like okay, I didn't come planning to make this, it just came to me in the moment. I did not come planning to make this comp, but I'm gonna say it now that it's come to my attention. If your style of romantasy airs towards like Radiance by Grace Draven, I think you should check out Bitter Medicine. And we are following more of an acquaintance to lovers style relationship with two characters who are both working through some stuff personally. What's the best way to describe this plot setup? I haven't done it in a while and I'm kind of not forgetting, but like, I don't want to spoil anything. He works kind of in like the intelligence, secret service side of this agency, and a case that he's working on sweeps our main character up into it because of her past connections. I don't really want to say anything else about the plot. I'll write down I'll read you what I wrote in the time of planning this. So I wrote down the things that it does really well, like acquaintance to lovers. I think it explores the idea of family ties and connection and how different people feel about responsibility to family. I think it did a really good job of. It had really great communication between our main characters. So if you like main characters in a relationship who talk to each other and share what they're thinking and the potential hang-ups that they have, this is a great example of that. They each have something going on in their life that they're each individually working through. So it's not like one person is perfect and the other person has like stuff going on. They both have stuff going on, and at different times that affects the continuation of the relationship or like the progression of the relationship, but in a realistic and positive way where they are communicating about that fact. Really, really great mental health representation here and exploration or like discussion about self-worth, as well as like a little bit of like, I'm trying to think if it was like outright PTSD, but the way, sorry, I just bumped the tripod, but the way that past situations can affect our hang-ups. Now, bitter medicine is a tie-in to the idea that you've made a mistake in the past and now you just have to like live with it, and you have to swallow the bitter medicine because of the choices that you made in the past, like the mistakes that you made in the past. You now have to like suffer a little bit because of it, and it's a journey for both of them on working through that. It has a very quiet tone in that it's not like fast-paced and action-packed, and there is some action, but in fact the climax of the book is much more emotionally and character driven than it is action. The action sequence is not the like conclusion of the book. That takes place surprisingly earlier. And the climax and the things that we're working through is much more personal and character driven. So yeah, I didn't come into this. Nowhere did I write down Radiance by Grace Draven as a comp. I haven't ever even thought of that comp before. It came to me in the moment. I've said it now. I'm gonna stand by it. It's not exactly the same, obviously, but if you're looking for something that is more Radiance by Grace Draven than it is like From Blood and Ash, this is the style. You should check out Bitter Medicine by Mia Sai. This is a standalone. I haven't heard of any books coming from this author just yet, but I am avidly awaiting to see what this author writes next, because I'll absolutely be picking it up. Okay, those are the books that I wanted to share with you today that I think more people should be talking about. Let me know if you have read any of these books and you agree or disagree, perhaps, with what I have said. Let me know down in the comments. You can also recommend a book that you wish more people were talking about. If you just want to let me know that you were here, leave a blue, anything that is blue for our Bitter Medicine cover. If you like what I do here, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And I will leave some other videos of mine that you can check out if you haven't seen them before. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye.